The Texas Attorney General, Paxton, has now demanded that the COVID-19 vaccine makers produce evidence on safety and efficacy. So what precisely is Paxton looking for here? Well, he's investigating whether the companies misrepresented the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines and the likelihood of transmitting COVID-19 after taking the vaccines in violation of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Paxton is taking aim at the vaccine makers to force them to turn over their documents, which the public would otherwise not have access to. We're going to discuss what is happening here. And so from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, during the height of the pandemic, while the American people were subjugated to lockdowns, mask mandates, and forced vaccinations, the state attorney generals have led the way on many COVID-19 related freedom issues, including a response to President Joe Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for companies with 100 or more employees. A group of state attorney generals challenged and took the mandate to the Supreme Court. The High Court's decision that the OSHA large employee vaccine mandate was unlawful was the work of these attorney generals, as well as other parties opposing COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Other actions by attorney generals that have taken place over the past couple of years, as we reported at trialsitenews.com, included a letter to the CDC by 14 attorney generals objecting to adding a COVID-19 vaccine to the childhood schedule. And now, recently, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has stepped forward as leader of these freedom-defending state law enforcement officials. Paxton is seeking to challenge the COVID-19 vaccine makers on deceptive trade practice violations, and Attorney General Paxton isn't a lightweight either. Among his previous successes have now included his victory against President Biden's Head Start vaccine and mask mandates. At the time of victory in this lawsuit, Paxton wrote in his press release back in April that, "I am proud to announce that the Biden administration's attempt to use the Head Start program to mask toddlers and force the vaccine on staff and volunteers has now been permanently defeated. I have worked relentlessly to end Biden's troubling policies of medical tyranny, especially his attempts to impose draconian interventions on our children, as well as his efforts to punish Americans who do not comply with his preferred medical treatments, many of which are arbitrary, ineffective, and unjustified by the scientific evidence." Now, if anyone even has a chance at cracking open the nearly impenetrable walls of the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act legal defenses via demonstrating violations of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, it would be Attorney General Ken Paxton. So the question then arises, did Pfizer and Moderna exploit the pandemic? Big payouts to executives have been in the news for the past couple of months, as the chiefs of both Pfizer and Moderna have made out quite well thanks to the pandemic. While Pfizer's CEO took home $33 million alone in base salary, not to mention millions made on Pfizer stock, Moderna's Stefan Bancel pocketed nearly $400 million on salary plus options, not to mention $2.8 billion in Moderna shares. But was this money made fairly and within the rule of law? In the national public health emergency context, you had a deadly pandemic and society-wide fear, often stoked by mainstream media's hysteria, which meant a voracious demand for COVID-19 vaccines were inevitable, especially when they were first released back in late December of 2020. So the question must be asked, did the pharmaceutical companies follow the rules? Were shortcuts taken? Did claims of safety and efficacy violate state laws involving deceptive trade practices? And most importantly, given that the companies are afforded wide federal protections under the PrEP Act, how serious is this AG action here? Put plainly, Attorney General Paxton will attempt to use his position on behalf of Texas to investigate if the vaccine makers somehow misrepresented their COVID-19 vaccine efficacy and safety while manipulating the clinical trial data used to greenlight the emergency use authorization. On May 1st, Attorney General Paxton issued a press release announcing a new investigation of both gain-of-function research and misrepresentations by COVID-19 vaccine makers. Specifically, Paxton is looking into whether Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson committed any wrongdoing respecting these issues. He is also investigating whether these firms misrepresented the effectiveness of their vaccines and the likelihood of transmitting COVID-19 after taking the vaccines in violation of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Paxton and his team of state lawyers will investigate if there was any manipulation of vaccine trial data, noting that the investigation concerns potentially fraudulent activity that falls outside the scope of legal immunity granted to manufacturers of the COVID-19 vaccine. Further, the investigation will review the controversial practice of firms using relative risk reduction as opposed to absolute risk reduction in their public statements of vaccine efficacy. This is a topic during the pandemic covered frequently by Dr. Ron Brown over at trialsitenews.com. Now, on this most recent action, AG Paxton pointed out that certain pharmaceutical companies have had record-breaking financial success, driven in part by sales made from products related to the COVID-19 pandemic. This vested interest in the success of these COVID-19 products, combined with reports about the alarming side effects of vaccines, demands aggressive investigation. Now, these actions will force firms to hand over documents that are otherwise unavailable to the public. As the Attorney General press release noted, the Texas investigation will force these companies to turn over documents the public otherwise could not access. Attorney General Paxton is committed to discovering the full scope of decision-making behind pandemic interventions forced on the public, especially when a profit motive or political pressure may have compromised Americans' health and safety. Efforts by the federal government to coerce compliance with unjust and illegal pandemic interventions, even at the cost of citizens' employment, means this investigation into the scientific and ethical basis on which public health decisions were made is of major significance. Paxton's effort is seeking to determine any violations of state deceptive trade practice laws. As the Attorney General put it, the development of the COVID-19 vaccine and the representations made by and knowledge of Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson are of profound interest to the public health and welfare. This investigation aims to discover the truth. This pandemic was a deeply challenging time for Americans. If any company illegally took advantage of consumers during this period or compromised people's safety to increase their profits, they will be held responsible. If public health policy was developed on the basis of flawed or misleading research, the public must know. The catastrophic effects of the pandemic and subsequent interventions forced on our country and citizens deserve intense scrutiny, and we are pursuing any hint of wrongdoing to the fullest. Now, in the civil investigative demand issued to Moderna as part of this investigation, Paxton's office is seeking documents by May 31st of this year relating to a variety of issues. The demand was made under the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Consumer Protection Act, and it is seeking documents related to marketing and promotion, advertising, and educational materials which, quote, contain information regarding the safety and effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines and the potential for short and long-term side effects after a single dose or series of vaccinations. Any study, publication, or research document, including publication of a peer-reviewed article in any magazine or journal that you sponsored or funded in whole or in part, or to which you contributed in any way that relates to any of your COVID-19 vaccines, the prevention or reduction of COVID-19 and or side effects of vaccines for COVID-19 generally with the supporting raw data. Now, Paxton's moves, if they have a legal leg to stand on, would have widespread implications for the legal immunity granted to Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. If the Attorney General were able to somehow to penetrate the nearly impenetrable walls of the PrEP Act, this could open major class action litigation from the COVID-19 vaccine-injured population. Now, the demand also seeks all communications among risk management teams regarding the safety and efficacy of the Moderna vaccine, including short and long-term risks. Next, all documents about adverse events and side effects, including injury or death, are sought, along with those, quote, sufficient to identify all lawsuits or private causes of actions filed against you regarding marketing or representations made by you about the transmissibility or likelihood of transmitting COVID-19 after taking your COVID-19 vaccine. Now, also sought here are any communication with the CDC related to the vaccine definition change from a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease, protecting the person from that disease, into a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases on or around September 2021. Now, in addition to many more documents, Paxton also is asking for any and all whistleblower reports. Now, this will be an incredibly important case to follow, my friends. If Attorney General Paxton is able to break through the PrEP Shield Act, we might just get to the bottom of what really happened with the vaccines. And most importantly, those who have suffered negatively from the mandates might someday receive justice for what has been done to them. And of course, time will tell, and we'll keep you posted on the story as it continues to develop. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, or for written articles published every day, 7 days a week, be sure to visit us at trialsitenews.com. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.